Yeah, they're really nervous. They've got on stage with a microphone, and they gave me a time limit. Okay. Okay, so the panel's nervous too. So let's get started, because this isn't about me tonight. It's about the students and the Golden Legends. That's you guys, the Golden Legends. We're going to start the program. I'm going to go right down the line to break some ice, and they have some specific questions they've been asked to address, which they'll do in a bit. But to begin with, to know a little bit more about them, they're all going to answer fundamentally 4 questions. 1, why did you decide to go into the oil and gas business? 2, how did you get into your area of expertise? Very wide areas of expertise. 3, why did you decide to join SPE? And lastly, describe your experience through the cyclical nature of this industry. So Steve, we'll start with you.
All right, how's that for volume in the back? Excuse me. Okay, I'll try to be brief. You know, my interest tonight is mainly to talk to the students and try to give you a little perspective and perhaps some tidbits and at least some things to think about. It's a tough time, no question about it. I'm living it. I've got a son who's a senior sitting over here, and so I wish you all well. I guess I'll say up front, it's a terrific industry. Mines did a tremendous job preparing me for, you know, something that I would not do any differently over 35 years. So hang in there, and there definitely will be better days to come. So let me march through the questions fairly quickly. Why did you decide to go into the oil and gas business? Well, probably like a lot of folks, it was kind of by accident. I was actually doing some manual labor for a neighbor in Lakewood, Colorado, digging out rocks, putting in a flower bed or something, and he happened to be a petroleum engineer working for Texas Oil and Gas, and he started talking with me. I was probably a junior in high school at that point, and asking me what I was going to do with my life, and I said, well, engineering. Beyond that, I don't know. A couple of visits to his office, and I remember coming on campus and speaking with Dr. Bass, and then the rest is history. So perhaps a better question is, why did I stay a petroleum engineer? We didn't have an intro to PE class, so our first petroleum engineering course was 308 rock props, and Bill Mitchell was teaching that, and some of you know Dr. Mitchell, a true legend, and he probably wasn't too interested in teaching rock properties. He gave 30-point tests, and the average on the first test was 1 out of 30, and I scored average, and we hung in there, so I guess there's a lesson in persistence there someplace. How did you get into your area of expertise? And I think, gosh, this is a truly distinguished technical panel, so I'll try not to talk any about that and talk more about the business capital markets things that I've done in my career. Really, it was a progression from being in strategic planning and the interesting element, I was in Arco, Alaska. I was the planning manager. In Alaska was a big part of Arco's business for investors. So we would have investors that would be interested in want to talk or take field trips or whatever. And the circumstances were such that the VP of Finance and the president of Arco, Alaska just really didn't have any interest in talking to Wall Street analysts and investors. And so for whatever reason, that fell to me. That led to me being offered a job in investor relations with Arco in headquarters in Los Angeles, and ultimately led to me coming back here to Denver to Petrie Parkman to be a Wall Street analyst. So, you know, I think the lesson, the tidbit to pass along there is be open to opportunities. That certainly was not a career path that I ever would have anticipated, but you know, again, it's worked out. It's been a lot of fun. SPE is great. I love SPE. I loved it from the beginning. The technology in this business is incredibly leveraging It's incredibly differentiating, and I attend every SPE event I can, whether they're local or whether some of the joint sessions like ERTEC or ATCE, and you know, I'm taking the time, which is a precious commodity, to continue to try to stay involved in SPE and keep current on technologies. Cyclic nature of the industry, yeah, this group has been through a bunch of downturns. I think for me it's either 5 or 6 50% drops in oil price over 35 years. It gets easier at this point. Again, I really feel for you guys it's tough, and I understand that. But being in the business and having lived through those downturns provides some perspective. Frankly, in every downturn there's opportunity, whether it's to, you know, reinvent yourself to do something different, buy some properties, or whatever it may be. So try to be opportunistic. Done.
Thank you. For really good timing. Dr. Kazemi, please.
I hope you can hear me all right. You know, first of all, I'm really honored that I've been invited in terms of these distinguished panel. I just want to tell you that before I go through answering the questions, I thank Ilyuddin, my colleague, also Nabil and Muhammad to invite me to this. I'm very grateful, I'm excited about it. And secondly, you know, being at School of Mines has been tremendously rewarding, and one of the most precious rewards I have is the lady on the right. She was in my class many, many years ago, and lo and behold, now she is the Dean of the College of Engineering and Earth Sciences. So that really, if you look at excitement, I'm very proud of your accomplishments. And
thank you, Hossein.
And third, you know, my history, you know, I went to school, I was a freshman in 1957. I graduated in 61, then I got my doctorate. And I went to institute to work. It was really an exciting time. I will share with you later, this has been an outstanding industry. I've gone to this by luck, by accident, and I'm grateful to God that I've been part of it. But one of the members of this panel, Surkalo, who will talk to you in a minute, he and I started, you know, I met him in 1969 at Marathon when I came to Marathon. And we worked with the chemical flooding. Of course, he was the leader in the field, and I was on the somewhat support at the time at the Technology Center. But there is a gentleman here in the audience, Jerry Jargon, and he was at the same time he had joined Marathon, and he is really truly a legend. And he is attending here tonight. We did so many great things. I was so fortunate to be associated with them. Hopefully I can share with you, and then you can really appreciate the excitement that, you know, a little guy can work with some really distinguished people and make a huge difference. So I'll share with you that one too. And finally, I want just to thank a dear friend and a very great supporter of mine, Erdal Askin, for many years, and then also Will Flackstein, and there are many others. There are many people from Marathon. I can't say enough. But last, not the least, is the wife of my mentor, is Annabelle Potman. My mentor, Fred Potman, I love him dearly. He passed away many years ago. And his son, Philip, and his lovely wife are here too. And I learned a lot of lessons from him. So any day, every day, Annabelle Potman is my prayers. Well, let me answer the questions. Why did I get in this business? I got in this business by accident because I was a foreigner. I just walked in here for excitement being in the United States, being part of a culture of science and technology, freedom. So I was a young kid. I didn't know any better. But just because I came from Middle East, there were more awe. So lo and behold, I ended up getting involved in petroleum engineering. So that's the reason for me. But anyway, as it continued, I was more inclined toward mathematics and physics and chemistry. So mathematics pushed me toward reservoir engineering. So that's the story on that. And so I have really covered this to the best of my ability in a short period of time I have. But anyway, we'll share with you some of the experiences from this industry. And I just want to tell you that, a lot of young people here, they're looking for an answer. Is it going to be like this for a long time? I'll tell you, I've gone through a lot of those. I started with $2 a barrel, and the price of gasoline was 19 cents a gallon. And I've gone through a lot of these. Every 3-4 years, it's been like this. But some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. Tomorrow will be a better day for all of you. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm flattered that you think I can add something to this conversation. Thanks to the SPE for inviting me. The student chapter put on a great dinner here tonight. I hope I live up to expectations. To move on to the questions, number one, how did I get into the oil and gas business? This was my practice interview. I was getting out of graduate school and I wanted all these jobs in academia or national labs, and somebody said that Amoco was coming to interview, and I hadn't had a tie on for 5 years, much less leather shoes and a suit, so Amoco was my practice interview, and long story short, they offered me more than anybody else, so I went to work for them. Second question was, I lost my place. How did I get into my area of expertise? Thank you, Steve. I had been working at Amoco Research for about 2 weeks. They put me into the underground coal gasification group. I got my PhD in molecular spectroscopy. Oh, thank you, ma'am.
Your very own copy.
Thank you. I lost mine somewhere. I got 3 copies of the parking map, but I don't have this. So thank you. Like I said, I was an experimental spectroscopist, and I got hired by Amoco to do combustion stuff. And my boss walks in after about 2 weeks and hands me a stack of papers and said, we don't really have a research project for you yet, so we're going to assign you to this coal degasification. That's what they call coal bed methane. Coal degasification. It'll only be about 6 weeks, then we'll get you a permanent job. So that never looked back. I've been in Unconventionals ever since. Number 3, why did you decide to join the SPE? Now that was the free lunch. Really, that was the free lunch. When I went to work for Amoco in Tulsa, at that time the Tulsa section had a lunch every single Wednesday. Not once a month, but once a week. And every Wednesday, if you went to the SPE lunch, the company paid for your lunch. I just got out of graduate school. I had a loan greater than a third world country. We had 3 young children as a free lunch. And it was at this buffet that was, usual terrible buffet, quantities greater than quality, but they had some great hot peppers and they had some great speeches. And at the end of it, I could ask my colleagues at Amoco all these crazy questions. And I had no idea what's tubing? What's frac sand? What's casing head gas? And they explained it to me. And so I said, maybe I should join this so I can learn something. So that's why I joined SPE. Describe your experience through the cyclic nature of the industry. Let me bend that a little bit and say the way I've made it through the cycles is luck and friends. It's luck and it's friends. We're helping each other get through this. It's luck and friends. We'll make it.
When I got out of school at a small town called Du Bois, Pennsylvania, I knew I wanted to go into a technical field, but I had really no idea what I wanted to do. But if you remember, the Drake Well is located around Oil City, Pennsylvania, and I thought, gee, that might be an interesting industry to get into. So I took petroleum engineering at Penn State, and after 4 years I got my BS and needed to get a job. And at that time I interviewed a number of different companies, and I also, when I took petroleum engineering, I wanted to come up with a career that I would be able to leave the Pennsylvania area and have an opportunity to see different parts of the world and work in an industry that worked in different parts of the world. I went to work for Marathon in the Illinois Basin area in 1953, and this was an area that Marathon originally discovered in 1906. So the field that we were working on at that time after the Second World War was a field that had old producing wells drilled during that time that were drilled with cable tools. And I don't know if anybody here knows anything about cable tools, but what we did was re-drill the entire field. We were talking about 100,000 acres or so of reservoirs that existed at around 1,000 feet and 2,000 feet. So we developed the water floods, and about 5 or 6 years after I started, I became the reservoir manager for developing a lot of these water floods. And shortly after that, we put in an in-situ combustion project, and working with a research organization that was put together by Marathon in the middle 50s. And about the same time, because we were developing all of these water floods, Marathon knew, or really one of the reasons for starting the research center was to see what processes could be applied to these old water flooded fields that had about 60% of the oil still there. So Gogarty, Potman, and the people at the Research Center started working in the surfactant polymer technology. And they coined the phrase Mariflood. You know, well, Mariflood is a surfactant polymer type of technology. So I was very fortunate to be able to develop a lot of these fields for water flooding, looked at the possibility of applying in-situ combustion or chemical processes. And at about the same time, I went from the production organization into research, and basically was manager of the Mariflood department, and worked with Hossein and Fred Potman and a few of the other people there. So that was sort of my background for having a lot of different kind of areas of technology and trying to get more oil out of the ground, all the way from water flooding to the exotic technologies. Why did I decide to join the SPE? It was because of all of the different papers that were being written about new technologies, field performance, and trying to understand really how you get more oil out of the ground. In 1978, I started Surtec, and it was excellent timing, and that probably is one of the key items on trying to start any new kind of a business. And the timing was right, the oil prices went up, and it was a great time to start it, except when oil prices went down in '86. And so I understand the problems with young graduates and a lot of the people that have worked in the industry, that oil prices do make a great difference on whether or not companies can afford all of the people that they have employed. So that sort of describes going through some of the ups and downs in the oil price environment.
Thank